Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. How are you?
Doing very well, Bob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Got a little late start here today. Had some technology issues, but otherwise we're doing well. So
I guess it's funny. You can have issues. If there are like issues and there are issues. You know, our issue today was that this program that we've been using for almost every episode told us that one folder was full. And so now I have to do something different with it. And I couldn't figure out why that meant I couldn't create a new image. And so I guess that's not a horrible thing, right? It means progress of some sort.
well, it's something that could have been a trigger to you, right? As we talk about our topic, you know, you got slightly frustrated about that. And all week we've been talking, all week being our second day of the week, we've been talking about triggers, these things that cause us to have an intense or not intense emotional reaction that takes us, I would say, off of our course that we're trying to head on. And they're roadblocks, they're speed bumps, they're stop signs, they're rerouting because of traffic would be the metaphor that I would use. Doesn't mean it takes you completely off, but certainly when you get rerouted because of traffic or an accident, it adds some time to your trip. My GPS says to me very politely, we've added 18 minutes to your trip because of this accident that you now have to go around. It's like, what can I do? I have no choice. So how am I doing, Tom, in explaining it? And you're so good at introducing who we are and what we are. So let's go there, shall we?
Sure. Well, this is today's Antidote. And as he introduced himself, that's Bob Graham and I'm Tom Brush. And this is... Felt like I was on the Muppet Show there for a minute. Like, woo!
Little jazz hands never hurt.
Jazz hands, yeah. Okay. Woo! So anyhow, this is not just a comedy routine.
Hardly.
That Bob and I have been doing since March of 2020, when the pandemic hit. It was our opportunity to help find that antidote, not for the pandemic, but the antidote for how to address the pandemic and how to continue to go through our daily lives and deal with the challenges, the struggles, the hurdles, all of the obstacles that we have, and continue to find our next step to help us continue to move forward along our own unique pathway to success. And so this week, our conversation, as Bob has shared, is about triggers. We talked a little bit yesterday about what they were. And today we're talking a little bit about how they hinder us, how they might slow us down or hold us back a little bit. And I think, Bob, you gave a pretty good example of that. I think they're all around us and they happen frequently. And it's something we really can't control for whatever reason. It's interesting. It's not business related, but as I was getting ready this morning, our dogs have this morning routine where they have their breakfast, and our little 12-year-old dachshund gets all excited and whines like that little kid that is impatient. Now he's 12 in dog years, so he's pretty old. And yet when he gets his breakfast, he's the most spry he is the whole day. And his whining just annoys me to no end. And Liz was like, well, why does that bother you so much? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the reason. It just is. I want to say to him, just be patient. It'll get there. You'll get it. And it sort of puts me in a whole different mindset moving forward. And so I think those things happen to us in our daily lives, in our work all the time. There are things that happen. I'm sure we all have a client who comes in and shares information, good or bad, that reminds us of something of another client or of another where they had a certain issue or they had a certain success or they were happy about it. And inside of us, it ignites this emotion that in some regards we have no control over or little control over, and at least initially, and it sends us off in a direction. And I think that the challenge is figuring out how do we address that.
Don't we have a bit of control over our reaction to that trigger? That you could get up tomorrow morning, you know your dog is going to do the same thing, and you could just say, I'm not going to let this bother me. When my dog starts whining, I'm going to start singing my favorite song from Hamilton. I'm going to think about how beautiful it is outside. I'm going to think about how much I enjoy when the dog sits next to me when I'm reading the paper or watching TV or something, right? We have a lot of control over how we react to it. In the moment, though, where it often hurts us is we react to something negatively or we put off a vibe. I mean, that's what someone was saying to me yesterday. Like, this whole thing about triggers, it's really a vibe you put off that the other person senses, and it changes the dynamic. And, it's like a positive negative charge. Suddenly there's something in the middle there. And I think that can be often what happens. I'll give you a great example. I've done it. I've coached people who have done it. They're doing a sales call. And the minute they have to start doing the pitch, the formal, so it would look like this and it would cost this much. You can hear the tone shift and you can hear the trigger that suddenly they become not Bob the talkative guy, Bob the guy that really cares, but now suddenly it's Bob the pitch master. And I don't like that part of me. I don't like that pitch part of me. And so when I've had to do that, it triggers a different kind of tone. And if you listen to me in a normal call that had a sales component to you, you could not hear the words. If you just heard the tone, couldn't understand the words, you'd be like, okay, something shifted right there. You can tell the voice was quivering a little bit. Well, I kind of think it's going to cost about this much. If you can't pay that, that's okay. I'll lower the price by 20% because I really like you and I know it's a lot of money for you and all this. That's one of those areas where I think a lot of people are triggered when it comes to that sales call. That sales part of the job, that if you don't make the ask, as you and I both know, if you don't make the ask, you won't get that customer, you won't get that client. But if you go into it and your voice is up here, and then suddenly it's, hi, I know this is really awkward, but I have to talk to you about how much it would cost to do these great things that I promised you I could do. We've all done it.
Sure.
I guarantee that's probably the place where it probably hurts us the most. And until you hear it in your own voice, because I didn't recognize it until I was doing a mock call with the coach. And she said, okay, let's go through a sales situation. And we went through and we were talking. All of a sudden it was the part where I had to explain what I do and how much it costs. And she's like, whoa, stop right there. Listen to your voice. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, listen to your voice. And it had gotten deeper and much less certain. Up to that point, I'm like, well, yeah, my company does it for you to. Suddenly it was, well, the hem and the haw part. And I think that's one of those concrete areas where many of us are feel a trigger because of the idea of possibly being a salesperson. And going into that, at the moment I become that salesperson, it's about me. And that's awkward to me. I can't speak for everyone, but certainly to me. So as you and I have been working with people, we've been trying to get them out of that whole sales approach. There's a different way to do it that we've both had success with. But I think that's one of those areas that when I talk to people about how their business is doing, that comes up a lot.
Sure. And I think there are those things, whether it's making an ask around money, going on stage, speaking, public speaking, all of those things for some reason or another have an emotional response that we provide or that we have that we, sometimes we can't even control. And I think, at least initially, obviously there's some reaction, and it's whatever that reaction is, then how do we figure it out? And I guess if we've never had it, like the first time it happens, you're like, well, what was that? Where did that come from? Why did that happen? And then trying to figure out, okay, is this something that every time I'm in this situation, this might be an emotional reaction that I'm going to have. How do I not hinder it? Because that's really, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, it's that reaction that if we're stuck in the reaction, that's how it'll hinder us. If we're never able to say to someone, yes, that you can join our Renegade Success Network, and it's $149 a month. And because we've shared the value of what that's going to provide.
Nice plug.
How you like that? That how are we ever going to make a sale?
Right.
How are we ever? And not even. Here's the other thing. Not are we going to make a sale? How are we going to change somebody's lives?
Right.
How are we going to help them figure out how to move forward? How are we going to help their business be more successful, more profitable? And in that point, us not sharing that because we have been hindered by something else, in reality, is it hurting us? Yes. Is it also potentially hurting them because we could have helped them move forward? Absolutely. And I think it's that, a little bit like you said, when you stop thinking about it as you and think about it as them, the client, the person, the team, then you have to figure, okay, I need to push through this because the opportunity for what lies on the other side is so great that it needs to happen, and that I need to make sure that I'm able to have an impact, whatever that impact might be, on the group of people, the team, the client, the customer, because they need what we're looking for. That's why we're talking to them.
I cringed when you said make the sale. I literally it was a trigger to me immediately. So it's kind of funny. I want to get some comments in there. Tom, from Tim, we get barely even late, which is, I like it. Tim also said, by the very nature of being triggered, it's difficult at best to control. It's because reaction is already set to a certain circumstance. That's what being triggered means. So yes, I agree. We have to figure out how we're going to react to something and rewire our thoughts around that thing. Tom needs to think about, his pet and how to rewire that in the morning tomorrow. And for me, it took some work to rewire that whole sales process so that it didn't trigger me in the way it previously did. Tim also says the ask used to be quite painful for me until I was coached out of it. I'm still grateful for that coaching. It has helped me sell better and clearly define the value proposition. It helped to think of it as all about an investment as opposed to about a cost. And I would agree. And if someone's having trouble with that, this is one of the areas that Tom and I have been working with people on. It's not as complicated as it looks to move past that. But I will tell you, the hard part of that for a lot of us is if you go out and look at the literature, look at the business books, look at the sales books, look at the how to close the deal books. They're all about the, what I think of as the 1950s Mad Men style of closing. So John, let's talk about what we're going to do here. So it's going to be $4 million for this. Oh, okay, that sounds great. All right, let's have a martini. Let's celebrate. Those days are gone. And for the most part, I know, yes, deals are cut over martinis and Manhattans and those things. I understand that. But that is not the norm in this COVID world that we're living in. And I'm sure there's someone who listens to this, watches this, and what I just did probably was a trigger to them. And there's, what's the movie? Did you ever see Glenn Ross, Glengarry? Have you seen that movie, Tom?
Never the whole thing.
Okay. So
No.
Remember your ABCs. Always be closing. So you can imagine what that movie is about and how that showed up.
Right.
And so we this is an area that I think a lot of people feel a trigger kind of response. And I think there are other areas that we go to. You brought up public speaking. I've seen it in people when they have to give their pitch at a networking event. So I hope this is the right words. I hope it clicks. And they are in that response where they're not even ready to accept if everyone went up to them afterwards. Oh wow, I didn't know you did that. I'd love to know more about your cookies. I have a birthday party coming up. Could you make cookies for my birthday party? They're so worked up because of that fear of saying the wrong thing or not fitting in, that it triggers a response that goes back to whatever it does. And I think that's the hard part of this, is until you start to look at what is triggering you, what is causing you that reaction, it's awfully hard to do anything differently than to react the way you've always reacted. And so many of these for me go back to my childhood. I mean, when I trace them back, I can point to a day where something happened to me and the teacher said something, my father said something, I felt a certain way in a setting. And here it is, 40, 45 years later, it's like, wait a second. Why am I letting 6-year-old Bob have so much say in 55-year-old Bob?
Well, and it's almost not you.
Yeah.
It's why was the comment said to 6-year-old Bob something that is now impacting you 40 years later?
Yeah.
And I think that, clearly there are people much smarter than us that are working to figure that out. And we're not in that part of the business world. And there are things that I think people like us and others can help try to identify when those things happen and when the next, how to next deal with it. And, sometimes people won't ever get over with it. As I think I shared, we were talking about yesterday, like I know that my mom, she will be in church and she will start crying at some point. Not every day, not all the time. But I think for her, church is such a part of family. And now that she's at a point when she's one of 8 kids and her father died before she was born, she's got this whole fascinating story about her mom, or grandmother, her mom, my grandmother, that it is always going to evoke an emotion for her. And I don't know that is ever anything she can stop. I think she can start to understand that the emotion is maybe gone from sadness to celebration. And maybe it's sadness as well. And I think that as long as we don't allow that to hinder us from moving forward, like if she could not function after that, which to some people that happens, that's a real thing. And it's how do we figure out then how to move forward, how to take the next step, and sometimes it's as simple as what is that next step and trying to figure out. And many times it's not that simple. So I don't want to make it like this easy thing, but it's, and I know we've shared the story about the woman who started crying after a comment I shared. She goes back and she posted that the other day in another group I'm in about how that was a defining moment for her business. And I just did it as of like, this is a conversation we were having and sharing. But for her, it was a very significant, real moment that was her first step into what has now become a very comfortable career helping others, that I'm not sure if she hadn't taken that step, she would be where she is, that she would have still been hindered by self-value, worth, asking for money, all of those things that so many of us have challenges around.
So Tom, before we do the one thing today, let's tell people about all the great things we have coming up. Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we have our Renegade Roundup, where you can get together with other renegades, talk through issues, get to know each other. We give you questions to answer that are not the usual, tell us about your business in 5 words. Do your 30-second pitch, but we actually try to get you mixing it up with people, engaging with people around topics of interest so that you can foster deeper relationships that lead to opportunities and ultimately for many, business. So that's at 4 p.m. Eastern time this Thursday. You can go into the Ring of Renegades Facebook group and you'll see all the details there. You can sign up and say you're going. And also, Tom, we have tomorrow at 1 p.m., correct? Am I right? 1 p.m. tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
See how you're going to do with this. So
we have a clubhouse scheduled. I unfortunately cannot make it, so the master of ceremonies will be Tom soloing. I can't remember what you named it, Tom, but it was a great name, and I'm totally blanking. Do you remember what you called it?
Oh, yes. It was Leaders Check In and Check Up.
Oh, nice. I like it. Yesterday we had Set Your Intentions. Tomorrow we have Check In, Check Up. And then Friday at, is it 11:30?
Nice. Look at you.
Eastern time. Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, we will be doing lessons learned. So if you're on Clubhouse, and at the moment to be on Clubhouse, you have to have either an iPhone or an iPad. If you do not have an invitation, because Clubhouse is invitation only, I have 4 or 5 invitations. Tom has invitations. Feel free to track us down however you can do it in the Ring Renegades Facebook group. Direct message us, and we will get you one of those invitations. Tim says Bob's on it this morning. Yes, I'm trying to up my game a little bit and not make Tom do all the hard work. So that's my thing. I also looked at my calendar right before the program and could see it. I'm a visual person, so if I see it on a sheet of paper, I got it. But if we're talking about it, no hope. So those are the great things coming up. And really, Tom and I, these are not just like Tom and me setting up things for our own vanity. Believe me, that is not what we want. That's not what we need. Our goal is to create ways for entrepreneurs, business leaders, and owners to gather the information and resources, the guidance and support, the sense of community that we both felt was missing from our entrepreneurial life. And once we found it in each other, we're like, boy, this really opens the door. We should make this available to more people. So it's not an obligation, but if you're trying to figure out what might be missing from your business, what's that piece? I will tell you, the sense of community of being around people who are carving their own unique pathway to success, being around the people and hearing what they say and how they answer questions, how they interact with each other. We did the intentions yesterday, Tom, and we had some great intentions from participants and a really great discussion. And I got a gem out of it from one of the participants. They gave me a real insight that was like, wow, this is awesome. Those things are available to you through the things that Tom and I are doing. So that's the goal that we're trying to achieve, and check them out. See if they work for you. Maybe the networking event's the perfect answer. Maybe it's one of the clubhouses. Maybe it's a one-on-one coaching call. Maybe it's joining our Renegade Success Network. We've got a lot of different ways to access those resources. So with that, Tom, now, what is today's antidote? That one thing that's going to help get us past triggers and how they can hinder or hurt us.
Yeah, give me the tough job. I could have done that part easy. This is a harder part. I think the challenge is, my one thing is trying to understand that they do hinder us. Sometimes I think we don't think about it. And I was in a similar situation. I clearly remember the first big ask I did in fundraising. And I was in this guy's office in New York City. I mean, I can feel it right now. I was sweating profusely. I couldn't find it. He was in like one of the World Trade Centers, like not the 1 or 2, but like 5 or 6, and downtown Manhattan. And, those buildings are confusing. And so I finally got there. I wasn't even late. I was just I felt like I was dripping with sweat. And I know that had an impact on my ability to communicate the way I wanted to communicate. And I think the more we identify that, we can then take the next step to figure out how it doesn't hinder us. Because that immediate reaction, as we talked about, is going to happen. It's emotional. It's not something we have huge control over. It's how we then move forward from that. so that we can understand. Do I still get nervous when I go in for a big ask? Yeah. And I think because I know that it's important, it makes a difference. And so I think better understanding, I know that's going to happen. Now, how do I continue to move forward with it? And, now it's just, oh yeah, remember this might happen. Or, oh yeah, yeah, talking to somebody and, hey, they said they might be interested in something. Now I need to think about, okay, what's my next step so that I don't let it hinder my progress. That would be my one thing. That was probably a lot of things, but that's
No, I like that. I do want to go back though. You said that you went to New York City. Was this the first time you were in New York City?
No.
Okay, because you grew up in upstate New York, and I know the buildings weren't real tall, and I know that it can be confusing when you can't see the sun as easily because the buildings are blocking the sun. And I just didn't know if that was part of the issue, Tom.
I'm not even sure I know how to respond to that. I am not going to let that. I know you're trying to trigger a reaction.
I'm just messing. It was getting heavy. Well, folks, this has been great. I like this discussion, and I like that today we really put some of the typical things that we see into it, because I think what you said about us finding where they are, I think there are more of these things than most of us realize. And I think they often stand in our way. So I love your idea that go out and figure out what it is. And, if you send an email to someone and they have an unusual response, that you're expecting this and you got the opposite, that might be one of those things where you go, okay, what's going on here? Did I use a word that caused them to be reacting a certain way that I didn't even realize? Or did I send it the wrong way? Or I had someone who complained to me that I would send him an email on Sunday evening. And it was just convenient for me. I wanted him to see it Monday morning, and he'd see it Sunday evening. And it would really upset him because he didn't want to deal with it on Sunday night. And I'm like, okay, don't look at your email. He's like, I have a better idea. Don't send it till Monday morning. And that was a really simple thing. Wouldn't have been in the play unless he had said to me one Monday morning, he's like, I got to tell you, I love that you're holding me accountable, but could you do it on Monday, not Sunday night? I'm like, why? He's like, I try not to work Sunday night. I'm checking through my email, and then I see your thing, and I realize, I'm like, okay. So we can affect these things. And it's not just those things that trigger us. It's the things we may do or may not do that cause other people to feel their triggers. So it's a two-way street, just like any kind of interaction. So with that, Tom, why don't we wrap it up? How about if we talk today about the incredible Renegade Success Network, since you talked about the incredible price that it's at. And I think people probably are anxious to learn more about what the Renegade Success Network is.
Sure. Well, and I'll also say that if you enjoy conversations like this, if you're looking for that community where you can have this type of a conversation, an open discussion about what are the things that might be hindering you, what are the things that you're trying to figure out your next step from, make sure to join us inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where we have a growing community doing that. It's easy to join. Just go to Facebook and search for Ring of Renegades. Now, it is a closed community because we are creating a community, and we want to make sure that people in there feel comfortable sharing what is real for them. So to join, all you have to do is ask and tell us why you're a renegade, and then you can become a part of this growing community. So we hope that if you are struggling, one of the things that our members of our Ring of Renegades have found is that they need that next thing. It's great to have a community and to have a little bit of accountability. But what they've also identified is that isn't enough. They need the next thing. They need that one-on-one interaction. They need someone to ask them the right question at the right time when they are stuck, because they haven't figured it out and what to do next and how to deal with those things that are hindering their progress. Well, those are the things we're talking about inside the Ring of Renegades network. So I'm going to share some information about that. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. We will see you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning for our next edition of today's Antidote, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then. Have a great rest of the day. Are you struggling to make your vision a reality? Are you stuck and don't know what to do next? Are fear and doubt holding you back? The Renegade Success Network will help you determine the next steps on your pathway. Here is some of what you will get. Create your pathway call to start you on a better path. Unlimited laser solution sessions to keep you from getting stuck. Nurture your network events to build your network with other successful leaders. Monthly Renegade challenges to prepare you for what lies ahead. The Renegade Success Vault, giving you access to videos, tools, and tips on specific topics anytime you need them. And the Renegade Success Network community, an exclusive Facebook group of like-minded renegades, all working towards achieving their goals. You have a choice. Do it yourself and fumble forward slowly and alone. Or join the Renegade Success Network and be part of a community built to help you find your own pathway. Join today at renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Act now and jumpstart your journey on your own pathway to success.